Good evening. I'm Rob Rosenthal. I was one of the founders of Green Street Art Center, and I supervised it in a variety of different jobs I had at Wesleyan over the years. I want to speak just very briefly about the goals that Green Street had. So Green Street started with a number of different goals. I want to speak about the three that I think were most successfully achieved because of their importance to going forward. The first was to stem disinvestment in housing in the area. This is a goal that a lot of people don't realize was fundamental to Green Street, but at the time there was incredible disinvestment in housing in the very green Rapallo area, and it was the establishment of Green Street that stopped that disinvestment, that led to the housing that replaced what was as bad housing as anyone can really imagine. So the current housing in Green Street and in the area, while not perfect, is, as those who knew the old housing will attest, a vast improvement over what was there before. And that came about because of the establishment of Green Street as a sign that the city and Wesleyan and the North End community were going to hold that community together and strengthen it. The second was to build a place in the North End where people in the North End could interact with others, students and staff and faculty from Wesleyan, but also residents from the region in general, and that was very successful. So that's gone on for years, a chance for people to work together and learn together, and in that way learn more about each other. And the third great achievement was to serve as a center, a source of pride in the North End. At the time that Green Street was first established, the North End was in pretty bad shape. Residents of the North End, when asked what would you most like in this area, said we'd like a community center. We need some sort of heart to the North End. And so for over a decade, Green Street was the heart of the North End and served that, I think, in a way that both solidified and stabilized and strengthened the community in ways that have been extremely important. People who know what the North End was like 15 years ago and know what it's like now know the great improvements that have been made. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Hush to talk about how the goals of that time can be strengthened and expanded on by our proposal.
As many of you know in this room, I'm Jeff Hush, and I'm the founder of Middletown Green, and the entire project started with Rob and I and Rachel, who's sitting in the front row, in a meeting exactly a year ago. And that's when we realized that Wesleyan was closing down the facility and that there was no way forward unless a community-based team came together. So we came together because of the idea that a community center is the heart of the community, as Rob said, and to take that away, we've heard various people claim that their projects can create a community center in that building. It's not the same as what we do, okay? The old Green Street functioned for parents and children of the community to serve not only as an after school, but as a safe place for youth and teenagers, and to claim that feeding people sometimes meals when they happen to be homeless teenagers is not the same thing as what we're talking about. Now, we want to expand the program that Wesleyan had in a very significant way. And in the old program, there was the arts. In the new program, we have health, technology, and the arts. And these three spheres add a great deal to our community. And not only do they add a great deal to our community, but they add a great deal to the reputation of Middletown. We are innovators. All the people you're going to hear speak today are innovators. The Wesleyan faculty members we work with are innovators. I myself am an innovator. So we work to create something new. And if we turn right now to the next slide, we'll see that we have to start small. And when I say small, I mean not just little kids, but you have to spark interest in any individual. And this can happen with a 65-year-old homeless person who discovers a new activity in a center which is innovative and which allows that person to try something new. This is not just about little kids, but if we're talking about the youth in our community, we're talking about sparking interest and then building that into a purpose. So the purpose that a child finds in his or her life is the purpose that drives that child to be productive. And we all know that low-income people in this city and in America right now, and we're talking about 36% of Middletown's residents, have very few opportunities to build themselves up through interests, through training, through skills development. That's what we do. So we build strong identities by building practices and purposes in people, and those build a strong community. So as Rob was saying before, we started with Wesleyan's project, which was there for 14 years, which worked with kids in the arts, but we're building far beyond that. And almost everyone in this room is part of the Middletown Green Community Center. Would people please stand up if they've come here for Middletown Green? Thank you very much. So this is not the 3 people sitting at this table. You're going to hear from 6 people today. And we've been working on this project for a year. And we've been doing it because we believe the community deserves more than nothing. So we started with the 3 experienced people from the old Green Street, Rob, George Perez, and Cookie Quinones, who's going to speak later. And they know what worked and what didn't work at the old Green Street. So they're our central advisors moving forward. We also know that just working with children is not enough. You have to work with adults. Look at Main Street in Middletown. The adults out there are lost. I talk with those people every day. I live on Grand Street. People come up to me and say, Jeff, help me, do something with me, give us an opportunity. Giving them pharmaceutical drugs and food is not enough. They need other opportunities. This is what we're talking about. Next slide. So, when we're talking about STEM programs, people often talk about STEM programs. We're talking about something different. It's called STEAM, and it adds the arts back into a technology-based program. And there's a very simple reason for that. The arts are what build creativity and innovation. Our economy is based not on repeating the same old coding again and again, but on innovation. So when we build a STEAM program with professors and faculty, and also with staff and students from Wesleyan, and with our people from the technology sphere and corporations, we're building something new that looks towards the future of our economy, not towards the past. The groups of people you see in this room, not only at this table, but throughout this room, have built a number of new institutions in the city over the past year. These are in their infancy, but these institutions will drive the future growth and success of Middletown. We have to remember that Middletown, especially in the North End and Green Street, has been designated an opportunity zone. The idea of an opportunity zone is an incredible opportunity to bring philanthropy and development to the North End, which no one has yet taken any real interest or has expressed any real sense of how to do that. We are the people who will drive this. We've got multiple local partnerships. You've read our 35-page proposal. The people are all in there. Many of them are in this room. We have a very broad racial, ethnic, and age and income dimension, which none of these other groups have. They're limited in very specific ways. We are not limited. We are the whole community. We are aligning our goals specifically with the new superintendent of schools and with Russell Library, Gail Thompson-Allen, who's in the room in the front, is the program director at Russell Library and has been for many years. She's interested in expanding the demographics of who's served in the library. She's reached out to us. She's now one of our board members. So when we look at our board of directors, and we have 17 of them now because we're trying to cover the entire community, we don't want to be just white, rich, middle-class people. We want to cover the spectrum of people in the community. So we've really thought about how we can do that. So we have an extremely wide range of people involved in our project, and we're going to move right now into Banning Eyre, who is a Wesleyan alum that I've known since 1979, who's run an extremely successful program out of Brooklyn for 30 years.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. So, Sandy, I'll just, my slides aren't quite as well integrated with my points, so I'll just give you a look when I want you to switch. Okay. All right. So, as Jeff mentioned, I'm, among other things, the senior producer for the public radio series Afropop Worldwide, which you'll see in a second. I know you're going to succeed because we tested this.
Yeah. Almost always show and tell.
Oh, I know. I see. She's getting it all ready so that when she plugs it in, we'll be there. Well, I'll begin. So Afropop Worldwide is the Peabody Award-winning public radio series that celebrated 30 years on the air last month. The program was literally born in Middletown. There we go. You can move it along there. It was literally born in Middletown as Sean Barlow and I, its creators, met in the Wesleyan class of 1979, and we both now live in the North End. I've basically been living in Middletown for 17 years now. One of the ways that our program has survived so long is by winning 11 major grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and that's a record, by the way. I was a lead writer on all of those grants, which averaged about $175,000 per year over a 14-year period. I think the total is around $1.8 million. I was also a support writer on 30 successful National Endowments for the Arts grants, all between 30 and 40K, as well as other smaller grants and a lot of fundraising campaigns along the way. The reason that our proposals were so compelling to the NEH, in particular, is that they extended our coverage of African diaspora music into realms of history, spirituality, literature, film, and ultimately, really questions of identity for all people with any degree of African heritage, and all of us are touched by that, whether or not we know it in our blood. It's in our culture. We're particularly proud of the fact that our audience is substantially African American and Latino, which is quite rare for a public radio program. The larger takeaway from these years of, you can go to the next one, there we go, that's our team of scholars. The larger takeaway from these years of grant writing is how the funding environment for the arts has changed over these years. The Ford Foundation's 2016 shift in emphasis towards arts initiatives that promote social justice was just the most obvious sign of this sea change. Afropop's response to this has been to leverage the incredible resources that we've gathered over the years and focus on reaching marginalized populations who don't tune into public radio. We view the Middletown Green Community Center as a perfect opportunity to implement a new vision of sharing knowledge and expertise with local youth. We'll do this through internships, workshops, and techniques such as audio editing, media digitization, and most importantly, mentoring kids in the skills, both technical and narrative, that you need to produce web videos and podcasts, basically to tell stories about their lives. The aim is to get kids to think about their own cultural stories in a much larger global context. And we're very confident that this approach will be highly fundable in this new fundraising environment. Okay. Finally, as we meet here today, Afropop is beginning a significant transition. Over the next 8 months, we'll be moving our entire archive and our headquarters to Middletown. If our proposal is successful, we'll work out of Green Street and begin immediately to create programs that further our goals for content production and archive management with the involvement of Middletown youth. I think I should step aside and let you come here now. Yeah, the next speakers. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Chris Kolstad, and Jeff's asked me to speak a little bit to the technology component of our vision for Middletown Green Community Center. I'm an engineer by education. He's asked me to keep this to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so specifically I'm going to talk to the technology component, why it's important to the underserved, and especially our Middletown youth in middle school and high school, and why corporations, and specifically manufacturing and technology companies, would find this of interest, and why they would support this, both in terms of engaging and also in terms of funding. A little bit about myself. I've had roots in Middlesex community from when I was born. I used to shop in Middletown when there was still a Sears here, and when Bob's Surplus was still on Main Street. And for the first 19 years of my career, I either worked in Middletown or worked in Portland. And most of my lunches were in Middletown, and I was active with the Middlesex Chamber of Commerce in Larry McHugh for many years. So I know the community well. I've seen all of the good work in community development and economic development over roughly 40 years, and it has come a really long way. There were many, many, many decision points where I think it could have really gone sideways, and it didn't, because of people like those that are in front of us in this panel and this commission, and others that care about the community. And I think this initiative, this Green Community Center, is a logical and good step forwards towards more economic development, and in particular, again, with the people, the underserved people of the North End. My company is Command Aerospace. We're a high-tech aerospace company located in Bloomfield, Connecticut, with also a facility in Middletown, Connecticut. Used to be called Raymond Engineering in the day, and now it's Command Precision Products. We employ thousands of people in Connecticut. We're very high-tech. We make and ship more product outside of the U.S. than inside the U.S., which makes us a net exporter, which is good in today's world. And for example, just last week I was in China, in Guangzhou, at the air show. Many Connecticut-based companies were also with me at that show, including Pratt & Whitney. And it's these companies that rely on good, talented young people, not only college-educated engineers, but also technical people in the areas of programming and quality and CNC operation and CNC programming and computer programmers. It is this constraint that keeps us up at night. It is the constraint of the supply of an educated workforce, both in the technical end and college graduates, that really constrain us. Right now, Pratt & Whitney, for example, is trying to hire 10,000 workers to sustain and support their growth in the coming time frame. And it's really, really difficult. It's the single biggest challenge we have in technology today. And it's these technical skills, the STEM or STEAM, as it may be, that we really think we need to continue our growth and to prosper and to support the Connecticut communities. And I think that the North End and this initiative can really be supportive of that growth. So not only can an initiative like this help the community and the young people who are moving through the educational system on very unique skills that are in high demand, but it can also help support those businesses like the Commands and the Pratt & Whitneys and the Command Precision Product in Middletown continue to support their growth and keep their businesses and their operations and their products right here in the Nutmeg State. So I am confident that given this chasm, this need, this demand for talented people to support the growth, that those same companies will support this financially. And I serve on this board because I believe in Middletown. I believe in the young people of Middletown, and I believe that the businesses will be very supportive of the Green Community Center initiative.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, I'm Tanja, and I actually am a former teacher in Wallingford for Bright Horizons, and now I live in Middletown. I've lived here almost a year now, and since I've lived here, I've got involved with the community. Now, my best friend, Sinead Fulton, she's also a teacher. She was at the high school. She works at the NEAT office, and I help out there. And we have formed a STEP team. The STEP team started in the high school, and we formed it for these children because we believe in the youth. The youth needs a place, an outlet. Besides school, besides the library, they need another place to go to have an outlet to show that what helps that they need. Like, they like to, we do a STEP program, we also do arts. We do different things as far as photography, but they do these programs for them so that they have a way out. Now, since the Green Street has closed, when I first started to live here and I see it was open, my nephew, which is Mrs. Fulton's son, he was there because she works late. She's a single mom, and you know how it is with us as poor single parents, it could be a lot. And that Green Street was open when she was at work late at night. He was there, he had a place to be before she got home from work so he can be home with her. Now, since it closed, I see a lot of youth on the street. I see a lot of youth on the street, and it's very sad to see them trying to find shelter, trying to find a place to go. If we have this building, they have a place to go. Just a few months ago, it was a fire in Rapallo, and they had no shelter for these people to go. But if that place was open, they would have had a shelter for these people to go. So it's not just for our youth, but it is for our adults. It is for the elders. And it's very important because they're young and they're gonna get older. But we need this. We need this center for them so that they have an outlet. We have built partnerships with not just the students, but also the parents. When they come to us and they have a problem, if we see that it's a big problem, we get the parents involved. We talk to their parents. We have one-on-one conversations, and it's confidential. It doesn't go outside of that, and we have built strong partnerships with the children and the parents, and they're like, wow, you guys are doing a great job with the team and these youth. So we need this building for our youth, for these parents, and they see the growth in these children. They say, wow, you guys are mentoring them in different ways that we couldn't get through them. You guys are talking to them, and they're telling you how they feel, and not even us as a parent. Sometimes they need another outlet to express themselves besides math, science, and social studies that the school provides. Besides, the library is very quiet, you're just reading a book or you're studying. But when they come to us, they have different ways to show or express their feelings. And that's what they need this for, to express their feelings, to show us that, listen, this is what's going on, and this is how I need help. And mental, we're not just doing it for physical health, but mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. They need these help. A lot of people just dismiss mental health. It doesn't exist. But these youth need us. These parents need us to say, we have people that back us, back our children, and they want better for us and this community. And this center is great. We already have a program going. We have a program already going at the NEAT office, but that space is not big enough. We need a bigger space for them to go to and have that safety and the stability. And this is why it is important to us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cookie Quinones. And I'm here because I worked at the Green Street Art Center for 15 years, Green Street 12, and was at the church. And we did do a lot for the kids there. And what my thing was that the parents enjoyed it so much because half of these parents didn't even know what the kids were actually, they didn't even know that the kids had the talent that they showed. When the kids went there, they had classes, they had homework, and then there was a show at the end. And the kids showed what they did and the parents didn't know. So this is why we definitely need the Green Street Art Center. I'm sorry, Green Street Community Center. We need that because I worked so many years with the youth. And being that got closed, the kids are asking that when is it are we gonna get one back? Even the parents are asking if we're gonna have another community center. And I'm hopefully, saying, hang in there, we'll see what we can do. But my whole thing is that I always work with the youth. And now I look at it being in there, I look at it as we need to, with the adults and the parents, because some of these parents need the skills also, not just the kids, the parents also need it. So we need to be able to teach the parents to be able to go and be on computers. And I say this because of myself. I learned a lot being in Green Street and being on a computer and stuff like that. So I know that these parents, what they need. They need to be able to go there and be on a computer, learn those skills. And it's a lot. I mean, I take this so hard because we need this Green Street, this center for these kids. We really truly need this center for the adults, for the parents. And with them getting some skills of digital and all these technology stuff, they will be able to get a better job. And they're gonna be out there and able to do. Why do we have to stay on this low income? Learning all these skills and all these stuff that we can get in this program will get us out of there. Will get us to be up here too and be able to work and afford to be able to be just like everyone else. We will be able to do this. And when I say we, because I include myself in this too, I would love to learn more. I would like to be out there. And yes, there's programs, there's tutorings everywhere, they got pieces here. And then they want to transfer the kids up to the hill. Well, some parents can't get them up there. And then there's places, there's tutorings here and there. Why can't we have a building where we can have it all connected together? Instead of just driving a kid over here, driving a kid down the other side of the town. We have a center that is already built for that community. It's already built. There's nothing that we have to do in there. Just now fill it up with the youth and with our parents and adults. That's what we need to do. We have it there. We should be able to get it and go forward with it and enjoy all the learning that we can do in there. Everything. I'm sorry, I did have to read, but I just go on and I could stay here and take up all the time. But my whole thing is that we really truly need the center for our youth, our parents, and our adults. We also need to learn more with computers, everything digital, everything that we can learn. We want it. It's there. All we need is the building. We need the building. We truly need this building to be able to give these kids everything they want and these parents the help that they need. Thank you.
I'm just emceeing. So those are our speakers. And as you ask questions, we have a number of different people who will be answering the questions because we have a lot of skill sets. So it's time for your questions.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I suspect you're going to handle this one. I wondered if you could just briefly, because it's in your proposal, but sort of give us an outline of your financing plan. In particular, it seems from what I read, a key piece is you're hoping to get some money from the Working Cities Challenge Grant. Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the city controls that grant. I think that the grantees were Connection and United Way.
That's correct.
Yeah. So the city we cannot grant what you're requesting for in your proposal for that. But that aside, talk about that. Maybe it's something that they could work out. I'm not optimistic because I think they have plans for their money. But talk about the rest of it, how you could, because financing obviously is necessary in order for you to get up and running.
Right. And that's why we had Banning and Chris Kolstad speak. Because the idea is that we would potentially, if you allow the building to become available to us starting in January, we would move into that building June or July. So basically, the corporate sphere, the art sphere, and the health sphere are all available spheres for us to get funding. We were told that the Working Cities Challenge grant was a potential source of funding. If it's not, it's neither here nor there to us. The idea is that we have created a group of people in this city, which has never been done before, a true grassroots organization, which links up with all the spheres and all the skills across this city. And what we're gonna do with that is to get money, and we're gonna have no problem getting money. If you remember, we're basing ourselves largely on the model that was created by Shofco. Shofco was a specific facility that was created in Kenya, in the poorest of the poorest places. Huge amounts of money became available for that simply because that kid had come to Wesleyan, Kennedy O'Day. They just won a $2 million grant from the Hilton Foundation. Now, we're gonna easily be able to get our first year budget of $100,000. I have no problem even imagining that I could get that in 3 months. So we have people who can get money. Millions of dollars have gone through the hands of the people who are running this. And then we have people in the community who actually have a vision of how we can bring people in from the community. So one can always say, let's go the old route. Let's go CHC. Let's go the soup kitchen. Let's go with what we know. But look at what's happened on Main Street. Look at what we know. Look at the way it works. That's been going on for 30 years. Do you want to change? Do you want to actually do something positive for the community like the Green Street Arts Center did? Or do you want to just keep muddling through the way it's been going? So we can get the money. That's why we tiered our budget from a low amount of $100,000 the first year to $180,000 up to $300,000 for the third year. Wesleyan got the money. We can get the money. I mean, there's no question. So until you have a space, you can't get money. I mean, if we could just like juggle, we can get 3,000 here, 5,000 here from little Middletown things, but we're talking about big national foundations, Ford Foundation, the Gates people. We're talking about real money, the kind of money that Banning got 12 years in a row, $175,000 for one grant from the NEH. So we're talking about a real opportunity to put Middletown on the map by creating something new, and we'll get the money. We're not worried about that. But if we don't have a building, then we're gonna have to get another building, and that building, which was created as a school and community center, will be gutted and turned into offices. That is foolish. That is a profoundly foolish use of that space. It's been a community center. It's going to stay a community center. We're here to do the work. That's why we're here.
Another part of your financing plan that's in your proposal is you indicate you're in negotiations with Wesleyan, and that you're hoping they would provide another 50 from Working Cities, 50 from Wesleyan. Do you have any update on the status of those negotiations? Do you have a commitment from Wesleyan?
No, we don't have a commitment from Wesleyan, but what you have to realize is when I talk about Wesleyan, I'm not just talking about the institution and President Roth, right? I'm talking about this series of alums that we linked up with through the Dar Williams concert at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. We got a letter from 500 of those people, and we will reach out, and a number of them are rich in hedge funds, et cetera. So again, if we get the building, we'll get the money. I guarantee that, and we've got people who've done it.
Okay. Any other questions?
But
Hi, Jeff.
I'd like to have someone else
Right.
from our group answer the question.
Okay, just in general, you've answered my first question, which is most important to me, about what the nexus is between our proposal and the North End residents and families. Especially when I read this proposal, I was struck by the holistic approach, and it almost touched everything that our community is about and where we want to go. With that being said, Chris, I think you're right on target with the technology vacuum that we have with manufacturing today around the country. Oh, okay, all right. With that being said, I know you only had a couple of minutes here. Can you expound a little bit of what type of training would we get from the aerospace industry, the manufacturing companies around within Middlesex County, and our pivotal members of our chamber? Can you just expand what your vision is as far as training? Kind of.
So,
Because it really piqued my interest as to what you were talking about.
So I'll give you maybe a couple of examples to help illustrate the point. What, about 8 years ago, when Command was recruiting engineers for aerospace, we had a real hard time getting engineers that had any experience at all. So we created a rotational program where we would take engineers right out of college, and we would put them in a rotational program, and they would rotate between applications engineering, material science, quality engineering, and manufacturing engineering. And they would do that 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, and 3 months for 12 months. And at the end of that period, they would have a pretty good understanding of how things work within a manufacturing company, where their skill sets lay, and also where our needs were. And then we would put them and plug them into one of those 4 areas. Similarly, today, and we've had other rotational programs since, but today we're having a real hard time with quality engineers. And that's an incredibly important part for aerospace because you want airplanes to fly and stay in the air. And so, because we're developing both in Middletown and in Bloomfield, Connecticut, the same kind of rotational program for quality engineers, where we're going to, and in this particular instance, some of the quality people, the inspectors, aren't college graduated engineers per se, but they're technicians that need to have certain skill sets, blueprint reading skill sets, the ability to operate sophisticated inspection equipment, and so forth. And we're going to tap into high schools in the area. This has already been launched, and we're underway in terms of planning it out, where we'll take perhaps juniors or seniors out of high school, and either during the summertime or during the week after school, we'll work them in and give them experience in one of our businesses in doing the work, at the end of which, if it's a good fit in both directions, we might take and hire that person on full-time. So that's another example. But I think there are other needs within the community outside of perhaps my company in terms of programming and IT. That's another need, a great need. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-year college graduate. It could be somebody out of a 2-year technical school or somebody right out of high school, where the community needs people to do programming, needs people who are sharp in IT. And I think a lot of children today are programmed differently than at least I was when I graduated from high school in terms of the internet, computers, IT, iPhones, and so on and so forth. But to take those sort of basic skills or understandings that children in middle school or high school have, and then hone them into business-specific skill sets that are needed and under demand by not only aerospace companies like mine, but other technology-driven companies, I think is crucial towards giving those children and ultimately high school graduates the skill sets they need to get a good, well-paying job that's really, and we'd love for them to stay in Connecticut. You know, as I think you're probably aware, a lot of people leave Connecticut because of lack of opportunity. So.
Okay, now take what you just told me, how you're gonna do that specifically for the youth in that neighborhood that maybe wants to get in this area, and how can you reach out? How can this program or this proposal, yours in particular, reach out to that child that wants to learn to be an engineer and wants to get into manufacturing? I know you're saying company level.
Right.
And I know what you're saying, taking them out of high school. But there's a certain level of children and youth that have the interest that we want to cultivate so that when they get into the upper grades, the more they learn, the better they can express themselves and learn towards that technology level that I think you're looking for.
Okay. So
Can this proposal do that?
Yes. And
Okay.
would you like me to
Yeah.
speak to it a little?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the beginning steps on this are the skill set steps, and we plan to have a bank of computers and very specific programming around the base and foundational skill sets that I've spoken to a little bit.
Thank you.
The second phase would be to create some kind of relationship with local companies in the area where these children, as they get more mature and after age 16, could potentially do either summer internships or after-school type work. Because I can tell you right now, with an unemployment rate of 3.7%, we are just looking for people to help us out year-round and in some cases during the summer. So I think that second step would be more specific to your question in terms of how we're going to take base skill sets that we can teach in a program environment at Green Street and then translate them into skill sets that businesses would in turn weigh in terms of the hiring process.
And the other, and then I'll give up the mic. The other thing is the funding part. Do you see these companies like Pratt Whitney, your company, other companies around that would support some kind of funding for this proposal?
Yes, and my company already supports a school in Bloomfield that's a correct school, and we do not direct monetary support, but others, we support a school in Southington. So absolutely, companies know the future is in our youth in terms of being able to continue to grow by hiring, and let's face it, baby boomers are retiring at millions per year. We have this enormous vacancy to fill as boomers roll off the workforce and into retirement. And that's a huge gap. It's a huge gap that we have to fill. So we are committed, my company is committed, and I know Pratt & Whitney, I used to work at UTC, I know they're committed to this sort of thing and these sorts of initiatives. And I'm quite certain that they will support it financially.
Thank you for your candid response.
Okay.
I have one more question for, we're talking a lot about the engineering, we're talking a lot about the technology. I'd like to speak to the arts. I'm not an engineer, okay? I'm the arts guy. Somebody tell me where, and I like the STEAM idea. I'm very, very big on that. I know the history of the MIT, what happened at the MIT experience, where they mixed the engineers and the arts together. Great products. Can you expound a little bit about what the role that the arts will be playing?
Okay, well, I'll talk from my own perspective. The kind of creative arts that I've been involved with are writing, photography, small level filmmaking, and radio production. And all of those things involve a lot of technology. I've trained a lot of interns, including some from Wesleyan, who've actually gone on to pretty impressive careers, because you need to have the skills that, especially now when so much of art creation involves technology. That marriage is key. If you don't know how to edit basic audio and video, you can't really tell stories with those formats, which are now so available. Everyone can do that with their phone. But to take all that stuff that you recorded and filmed with your phone and turn it into something that it will actually move someone who hears it or sees it, that's art, but it's also technology. And I think, I can't address some of the performance arts things. I'm not a dancer, for example, but and all of that would be part of what, that facility is so amazing. In terms of all the different, there's basics, the facility there for a recording studio, for computer lab, for a maker space such as we have proposed, and a dance studio, theater. All of these things are there. The facility is already set up for that, and we have the people who can come at that with this kind of holistic view that you referred to, where you're not just focused on your one narrow stream thing. This is something I run into so much more now. Everyone is into these multidisciplinary approaches to things, where you're not just limiting yourself to being a writer or being a painter. You have to see how all these things fit together, and how art today is this huge amalgam of creative freedom and technical skill. So I think that's really the philosophy that will guide us. I'm not sure how much that answers your question, but okay, good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
All right.